I'm sure like the rest of you, you've heard the news that Francis Ngannou's big announcement is that he has signed with PFL. I'm going to give you my quick thoughts and reaction on this and some of the good things and some of the bad things I like about this. Let's start first with the tweet here from Ariel Hawani, which I think summarizes things up quite well. Francis Ngannou has signed with the PFL. Per the New York Times, the deal gives Ngannou equity and leadership roles in the PFL. He's expected to fight in the promotion's Superfight pay-per-view division next year while competing in boxing this year. The PFL deal is an MMA-only agreement. His boxing plans will be announced at a later time, sources say. His PFL debut fight, opponent, and date wasn't announced just yet. Also, per the Times, Ngannou will become chairman of the newly launched PFL Africa and serve on the company's advisory board to represent fighters' interests. He's also going to be on the MMA Hour. I just wanted to do a video here quickly. I'm sure Francis will give more details at a later time, but my initial reaction to this is good for him. You know what? Like, if he wants to, have a future secured for him outside of fighting, which is what this is, like you read it there in fine print, equity and leadership roles, that means he's going to get that with the promotion after. That's part of what he was trying to get. It's not all about getting a huge payday for Francis. It's about having some security for fighters after their career. Not every fighter is going to be an analyst or be on television like we've seen, like a Daniel Cormier or Dominic Cruz. I mean, Cruz, I guess, not retired yet, but you get what I'm saying here. Not everyone can go do the television thing. For Francis, he's actually getting a leadership role here, which I think is great for him. So yeah, right off the bat, happy for him. There's going to be a lot of critics, a lot of snide comments today, I'm sure, from people saying, oh, Francis dropped the ball, what a disappointment, all that. We don't know yet. We don't know what boxing fight he's going to get. We don't even know what PFL's paying him. I'm sure it's very good if he's agreeing to do this. So let's reserve judgment until all those numbers come out here. But, there's a lot of, and I've talked about this before, there's a lot of people out there who, for whatever reason, don't want to see the fighters get paid more. If you get fighters getting paid more, you're going to get better fights. You're going to get better training. It's a win-win for everyone. So I never understand that, but that's a video for another day. So that's sort of the good part of this is, again, he's securing his future. Again, he's allowed to go do boxing as well. So he could still get that big payday with boxing too. PFL's not restricting that. UFC would have restricted that, right? They're not going to let him fight for the UFC and take a boxing fight as well, unless the UFC has control of it. And yeah, PFL Africa. I mean, how long has Francis been talking about doing an event in Africa? This looks like something leading to that, where they're going to have an event there. So I think that's great as well. So Francis is getting a lot of things that he wanted, that we've heard about in terms of the negotiations. So I commend him for that. Some of the bad things, we'll go over those as well. I got to be objective here. Why are you doing a press release at 3 a.m. Pacific time, 6 a.m. Eastern time? I'm guessing because of his fans in Africa, because I believe it's the afternoon right now. That might make sense, but your core audience here is people in North America. I think that press release being out so early was a little bit of a missed opportunity, or at the very least announce it on Ariel's show. I don't know. To me, that seemed like something that was a bit of a missed ball. And the other thing is, who's he going to fight in PFL right now? If you're looking at this roster, there's really one fight that might be interesting, and that's this Delija fighter who's actually pretty good. But outside of that, you've got a lot of ex-UFC fighters and fighters that frankly couldn't crack it in the UFC. And I think we all know how those fights are going to go. And if you're asking people to pony up and, purchase a pay-per-view for that, that's a tough sell. I've said this before. UFC is one of the only promotions, I think is the only promotion that can offer a pay-per-view that people are going to be like, I'm getting my money's worth. Bellator tried it. PFL's now trying it. I think it's a mistake. In this day and age, doing pay-per-view for something that's not the UFC, I think is not a good move here. So I don't think, as great as I think Francis is, I think that's going to be a tough sell to get people to purchase a pay-per-view, with right now looking like him fighting a guy that he's probably going to destroy. Now, there may be a possibility of PFL bringing in a free agent or someone that we haven't even thought of to come and fight him. That could maybe help the situation, but still, I think from the MMA side of things, I'm not really that intrigued to see Francis fight someone that's not, great. So from that perspective, I get people being upset. And also, I'm like everyone else. I wanted to see the John Jones fight. I think that would have been a huge fight, one of the biggest fights in UFC history. But I also look at the other side of this is that outside of John Jones, I mean, maybe Sergey Pavlovich would be a fun fight, but that's not a big draw for Francis. Outside of that, who really do you want to see Francis fight at this stage in his career? Like, maybe Tom Aspinall. I don't know. Like, there aren't a ton of options for him in the UFC, and this way he kind of controls his own destiny. The problem with the UFC, of course, is that it's about the brand first and the fighter second. He's kind of flipping things around. And the other thing we got to remember too, and again, we have to wait to see how this all unfolds. This may lead to other opportunities for fighters. Like, that's a good thing. We want to see more MMA. We want to see fighters treated a little bit better here, right? in terms of how they're being presented and all that. So that's my initial thoughts here. I think it's a great move for Francis. Again, the PFL thing is a good base for him. So he's, able to get some money. He's got a future secured with PFL on the board and all that stuff. PFL Africa, like we just mentioned there. And he can take a boxing fight, and he's not going to be restricted in fighting whoever he wants to fight in boxing, right? Like he would be with the UFC. So I think this is a fine, I think it's a good first step is kind of the best way I can summarize this. And I'm not going to be in the camp here that, oh, Francis fumbled the ball. Like, good for you. Like, I mean, this guy's taken a risk in his career. I'm sure we've all been in situations. I've been in a situation where I took a risk in my career. I quit my job to do this full time. I can respect Francis for taking a risk as well. I'm sure there's a lot of you watching this that have done the same thing, where you've been in a situation that wasn't ideal. You took a risk and it worked out. That's what he's doing here. So we should commend him for this. But I know how MMA fans are. There's going to be a lot of people crapping on this decision. I'm not going to be one of them here. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Who do you want to see Francis fight? Who's like even a free agent that the PFL could bring in? If not, what's a fight you want to see in PFL? And what do you think is going to happen with boxing? There's so many things we got to unpack here, but I want to hear from you guys. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @LynchOnSports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.